part of the changes with 55-2, first of all, who can tell me about the purpose test?
The purpose was to reduce the
Whole value of the shares.
value of the shares.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's one of the changes, right? So just for better clarity, if the purpose of paying a dividend is to reduce the fair market value of a share, then the dividend is converted into a taxable capital gain in the hands of the shareholder. It's quite punitive. It's not a position you want to put a client in, right? If it's safe income, you're okay. 55-2 does not apply to safe income. The purpose test doesn't apply. There are some changes, and well, I shouldn't say it doesn't apply to safe income because it certainly does with respect to shares that don't grow. So there's been an expansion in the purpose test in 55-2 that includes safe income being attributed to specific classes of shares. If the share doesn't reflect the growth of the company, you're not allowed to pay a dividend on those shares and not get caught by 55-2.
Because you're using safe income that they had nothing basically to contribute to.
Exactly. And if they're skinny shares, right, or say they're prefs or whatever, just standard prefs, well, generally speaking, we're talking about shares of a fixed value, particularly if you have like a capped dividend rate of, say, 7% of the redemption value, something like that, right? So the issue to be mindful of is yes. Now, you used to be able to do that. We could issue shares and pay dividends, and we're fine until 2016. This is on the radar with CRA, right? So we're suggesting not to pay dividends on skinny shares or other shares that don't reflect the growth of the company.
You talked about this earlier, but if you have shares that do participate in the growth of the company but don't have voting rights, is there any problem with that?
No, as long as there is a problem with it, but it's not that. The problem is if you have a wasting freeze, you'll lose your control of the company if they have voting rights also. But there's no problem with paying a dividend on the share as long as it reflects the growth of the company. So sometimes it's better to consider using skinny shares in conjunction with prefs or preference shares when you do an estate freeze. Because if you say you do a wasting freeze, who can tell me what a wasting freeze does, how it works?
You do the estate freeze, $1 million, and you take dividends against it until it's worth nothing.
Yeah.
Redeem them.
Redeem them, yeah.
But what ends up happening is you lose your voting control because your shares are disappearing. So you can be in a situation where, say, parents, do an estate freeze. They want to maintain control of the company, but yet they've redeemed all their shares. They don't have control anymore. So we always combine our prefs with skinny shares when we do a estate freeze. Why? Because first of all, they're not worth anything, but they do give you voting control. Because these shares, you issue these shares, the shareholders, they hold them with the prefs, right? But in this situation, there's your trap as well. And we're seeing this, by the way. We're seeing a lot of business owners being told, oh, just issue shares and pay dividends with no regard at all to 55-2.
Back to the creditor proofing. So if you gave a dividend to Realco, and suddenly you weren't able to meet your liabilities, weren't you offside with the Business Corporations Act, the Ontario?
Arguably.
You have to not put any creditor at risk, right?
Yes, that's true too.
So that would be an illegal dividend.
Potentially.
I think you can have a resolution to say I'll be personally liable for that
Yeah.
deficit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so I think it meets that issue.
Yeah, I agree. I think sometimes these things are a bit of a paper tiger, right? But it's always the what ifs. It's always 99% chance it'll be fine. But you know what? I don't know about you, but for me to sleep at night, I worry about the 1%. I don't want to get up here and read to you or anything, but in reality, under the old rules, you could pay safe income. You could attribute safe income, theoretically. You could attribute safe income to each kind of share, but now you can't, right? So the new rules basically clarify that the safe income is allocated according to the specific classes of shares. And that's really the problem, right? Is that fairly clear? Right? When you think about it, it makes sense too, right? You do a freeze. Well, okay, fine, we freeze at $1 million, and we say, okay, we'll give common shares to a trust or something, or individuals. And what ends up happening is, the future safe income, the entitlement would be going to those common shares, right? So it kind of makes sense in a strange sort of way.